2025 Georgia Bulldogs is going to feature a lot of new players starting for Georgia. Going to feature some new freshmen out there, some transfers out there. So I'm talking about breakout guys for the 2025 season. And the last two, so I'm talking about four players. The last two, I think, you might think I'm cheating a little bit, but I want you to hear me out. The other two are guys that you haven't seen a lot out of or you haven't really seen anything out of. But I think that, look, there's a lot of players going to the NFL. There's some players transferring out. Some players ran out of eligibility. So the 2025 Georgia Bulldogs is going to be a new look Georgia Bulldogs. There's going to be a new quarterback. There's new receivers. Brand new offensive line. The defense is going to look a lot different. Who are some guys that I think are going to step up and have potentially big years for Georgia? As I can't get my caller right. Ryan Kelly from Dawg Post. And my first guy that I want to discuss is Gabe Harris. Outside linebacker, edge rusher. He wears number 29. He's 6'4". He's around 235 pounds. He's going to be entering his third year in the Georgia Bulldogs program. If you're not familiar with Gabe Harris, that was the quick rundown on who he is. Georgia's defensive front is, when I look at it, and you start to look ahead into what this season's going to be, and you think about what are the strengths and weaknesses of this team, it's too early to say strengths and weaknesses, right? You could say it on paper, this is strong. On paper, the wide receiver room looks like it's better. On paper, the offensive line is different. Well, on paper, the front seven is the one that has the biggest question mark around it. Specifically the defensive line, specifically the edge rushers. Who are those guys going to be for Georgia? You're losing Nazir Stackhouse. You're losing Warren Brinson. Michael Williams, Jalen Walker, Chaz Chambliss, Damon Wilson went to the transfer portal. Smile Mondon entered the draft. So all of those are some impact guys from the front seven from the last couple of years. Gone. That's a lot. To me, Gabe Harris is the obvious guy that is going to benefit from that in terms of opportunity. I think he's going to have the opportunity to be a starter. I think he's going to have an opportunity to have a monster year because I don't know who else it's going to be. To me, the lineage is a little clearer with the defensive tackles. I think that Georgia is positioned better in terms of replacing its interior defensive line. I think between Jordan Hall and Christian Miller returning to Georgia, they've got a couple of young guys after that. There are a couple of names that I wanted to talk about. I ended up narrowing it down to Gabe Harris because I didn't want to do more than one out of the front seven. I think it truly has some question marks. To me, a year ago, when we were covering G-Day, right, so less than a year ago, Gabe Harris was someone that was really popping to me in spring practice, and he's someone that I thought made some plays at G-Day. You can't take too much out of G-Day. It's a scrimmage, but it's football, and it is, to an extent, real football. And I thought Gabe Harris was playing pretty well. Damon Wilson transferring to me, it was going to be Gabe Harris and Damon Wilson on each side as edge rushers. So now with Damon Wilson deciding he's going to leave, to me, that just makes it, okay, I'm penciling in Gabe Harris as one of Georgia's starting edge rushers. And I think that it's not a great thing, right? Quintavious Johnson is another guy. And then on the defensive line, Joseph Jonah-Ajonia, I think, is someone who's probably going to be a starter. He was a true freshman this last season, along with Quintavious Johnson. But this will be year 3 for Harris. He's got the size. When you look at him wearing that number 29 and the long hair, it reminds you of, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. You know who I'm talking about, the famous Georgia outside linebacker. For some reason, I've completely blanked on Jarvis Jones' name. That's amazing. He looks like Jarvis Jones when you look at him, right? I think he's huge. He's got the size. He's got speed. I was watching some high school clips of him earlier before I turned on to talk to him, and he's a guy that Georgia needs, especially with Wilson leaving. Damon Wilson leaving hurts Georgia. It really does, in my opinion. So the next guy that I think is a breakout candidate, to me, Gabe Harris is the obvious one. This one is probably the obvious one to the general public, but to me, someone who, covers the team and kind of I think that it's unfair for me to say I'm the only one and that media members are the only ones that question Kirby and question Schumann and question the coaching staff's decisions. Everyone has plenty of questions for the screen passes and for all different things. I question whether or not, is it going to be Ellis Robinson, who is my next guy, who I think is going to be a breakout player for the Georgia Bulldogs this season. It didn't seem like, to me, throughout 2024, that Kirby was completely settled with that secondary. And it seemed to me that the spot that they were the most concerned with the entire season was that second cornerback spot, which belonged to Julian Humphrey early in the season. And he made some plays, and he also got burnt and didn't make some plays. He was rotating with Daniel Harris. Daniel Harris eventually kind of rotates in as the primary guy there. Got better as the season went on. Will it be Daniel Harris who now has experience? Kirby loves that, and they love the experience. Dalen Everett's locked in at one of the corner spots, but the other starting corner spot, to me, will be a competition this offseason, and right now, that competition is going to be between Ellis Robinson and Daniel Harris. Ellis Robinson is one of the highest cornerback prospects ever, highest rated. All right, him and Jeremiah Smith were the top two prospects in the 2024 class. Jeremiah Smith, one of the amazing freshman wide receivers in the country up at Ohio State. Ellis Robinson was right there with him. And if you ask some people, Ellis Robinson was actually the best prospect. So he's got the long arms, he's got the ball skills, he's got the man-to-man skills from what I can tell and what I've seen out of IMG, out of what I saw at G-Day. So is Ellis Robinson going to take the job from Daniel Harris? Another tall, long corner who struggled some this season. And all in all, Georgia's secondary struggled in moments. Malachi Starks probably eye test wise didn't play as well as you would think to the untrained eye maybe. He got burned a few times. Dalen Everett to me performed pretty well for the most part. Dan Jackson performed pretty well. Well, Starks and Jackson are going to be gone. The cornerback spot to me though will be a competition, and they got to figure out who their fifth guy is in the secondary. Janelle Aguero is going to be out there, I believe, as a starter. I think Ja'Cory Thomas has an opportunity to be a starter. There are at least those two jobs up for grabs. KJ Bolden will be a starter. Is Ellis Robinson going to overtake Daniel Harris? That's my question. So I think he will. That's my prediction. That's the whole point of this. Harris, very good. I think he belongs on the field. I think that when you evaluate what happened this season, they'll go back and they'll probably want to put Ellis Robinson back out there. This is the one where I think y'all might think I'm cheating. How could they not play better? I've got my next breakout guys. It's not one, it's two. And I told you there was going to be four. These two play the same position. It's Nate Frazier and Trevor Etienne. Nate Frazier and Trevor Etienne, to me, are going to have better seasons in 2025 than they did in 2024. This run game for Georgia was historically not good. And I've mentioned it a handful of times. 2006 is the last time that Georgia ran this poorly. 1,700 yards on the ground, not close to 2,000, right? Around 130 a game. It's just not what you're used to at Georgia. It's been since 2006 since they've ran this poorly. Nate Frazier has 600 yards. Trevor Etienne has 600 yards. The next guy had 100 and something. It's uncharacteristic, the output that they had in the running game. Part of that's on the offensive line. Part of that's on the play calling. Part of that's on the running backs. People talk about Nate Frazier's fumbling problem. Are 3 fumbles a fumbling problem? That's my question to you. He had the one against Texas. It gets recovered by Georgia. And he had 2 against Ole Miss out in the rain in that environment. So out of all days, if I thought he was going to fumble, I thought he was going to fumble against Ole Miss. It happened twice. It's something that needs to get shored up. That's not even a word. It's something that needs to get better for Frazier, but something that I didn't think was as glaring of a problem as people made it out to be. It happened twice in one game, and that's probably why people freak out. It happened on a huge drive in a conference championship game. That's why people are freaking out about it, not because he fumbled over and over again. I think that that's something that will get better. The attitude, I don't think he has an attitude problem, right? People reference the thing he did in Jacksonville, the celebration with the gator chomp and, doing that motion with it. I talked to him about that, and he had a robotic answer for it and prepared and talking about how that was on him and how he had to be smarter, he had to be better, he had to be for the team. I just don't see it as a problem. Etienne and Frazier was a true freshman. I think he'll get better next season. I think he's an electric talent. Etienne proved me wrong in some big moments this season. I was under the impression that he really wasn't this giant addition to Georgia's running back room. Well, the Georgia running back room dealt with injuries, and the Georgia running back situation just wasn't great. He was good, and he was good against Texas, and he was good in big moments. And I think a year where now he's in the system again. So both of them were freshmen in Georgia's system. They'll both be in year 2. ETN will be in year 4 of college football and SEC football. And hopefully, for his sake and just for everyone's sake, isn't going to have a driving violation that sits him out for a game and causes drama to be around him. Hopefully he doesn't have a rib injury, right? That held him out for the middle of the season, that he suffered against his former team in a game he really wanted to play in. Both of these running backs love being Georgia Bulldogs. That is one of the most evident things that I've seen throughout the course of the 2024 season. They love being Georgia Bulldogs. And they're going to be Georgia Bulldogs in 2025, and I think that they're going to be better. Georgia's rushing output out of tandems, you look at 2023, Edwards and Milton, 800 apiece, right? And that's coupled with other guys getting more than just 100, like more than just one guy with 100 yards. You got Roger Robinson with almost 200 yards, Cash Jones, Dylan Bell, Andrew Paul, Carson Beck. They all ran, right? All you got was like 100 yards out of Dylan Bell as your third running back. There was no other running back that had 100 yards. Nate Frazier and ETN's 600 was uncharacteristic. That's when I look at Kendall Milton and Dejan Edwards' stats, they had almost 500 yards fewer than those guys the previous season. They dealt with injuries. They dealt with some off-the-field stuff. And then you go back in Georgia's history, the running game, they just ran for more. And you get 800 out of Kenny McIntosh. You get 700 out of Edwards. You get 600 out of Milton. I think you're going to see something a little bit more like that where they're both close to 1,000. If things work out with that offensive line, that's the question. But I do tab ETN and Frazier as breakout candidates, along with Ellis Robinson, along with Gabe Harris. Those are your breakout guys for today as I struggle to talk, which is how. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.